At 4:19 a.m. local time, radar screens across the Red Sea lit up like a circuit board under stress. What began as a routine night patrol was about to become the most sustained sequence of naval combat the United States had fought since World War II. For 15 months, the world's busiest maritime corridor had been under siege. The Iranian-backed Houthi movement in Yemen had turned shipping lanes into a battlefield, launching cruise missiles, drones, and explosive boats at civilian tankers and Allied vessels alike. But on this morning, the targets were not commercial. They were American warships. The first alert came from the destroyer USS Carney, stationed north of the Bab al-Mandab Strait. Her AN/SPY-1DV radar painted a cluster of returns lifting from the Yemeni coast, unmistakable signatures of anti-ship cruise missiles. Within seconds, similar reports came from USS Mason to the south and USS Gravely near the Gulf of Aden. The fleet-wide tactical network came alive, encrypted channels, calm voices, coordinates confirmed and cross-checked. For months, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers of the Fifth Fleet had operated under standing orders: defend the lanes, deter escalation, avoid provocation. But that calculus changed when those radar tracks curved seaward. The order from Fleet Command was clear: weapons free, defend all coalition traffic, engage at will. From the combat information centers of multiple ships, the Aegis Combat System began its silent arithmetic. Target speeds, bearing angles, intercept windows, thousands of calculations every second. Vertical launch hatches clanged open across the task force. Vampire, 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 multiple inbound, bearing 270. The call rippled through encrypted nets. An SM-2 Block 3 missile erupted from Carney's deck, then another from Mason. The roar of solid fuel boosters shook steel bulkheads as the interceptors knifed into the sky. Within seconds, their seekers locked, and invisible arcs of energy guided them toward incoming threats. High above the sea, contrails twisted in violent choreography. One by one, radar icons blinked out, hostile missiles disintegrating before they reached their marks. In the space of 6 minutes, the U.S. Navy recorded its first direct combat engagement in the Red Sea campaign. 4 hostile missiles destroyed, 0 hits sustained. But the barrage did not end. Over the following weeks, the Houthis launched wave after wave of drones and cruise missiles, sometimes 20 at a time, testing both endurance and supply. Each American response was measured, precise, and devastatingly effective. Between October 2023 and January 2025, the destroyers Carney, Mason, Gravely, Laboon, and O'Kane executed more than 380 interceptions, firing roughly 220 missiles and over 165-inch shells. Each engagement blended human decision and machine precision. Inside every combat information center, the rhythm became familiar: detection, verification, engagement, confirmation. Beneath dim blue lighting, sailors monitored consoles that looked less like battle stations and more like heart monitors for an entire ocean. Track confirmed hostile. Range 20. Time to impact 45 seconds. Engage SM-6L-24. Missile away. Each launch represented millions of dollars in hardware, but also the priceless proof of readiness. The SM-2 and SM-6 interceptors demonstrated why the Aegis system remained unmatched. Outdated Soviet-era missiles and low-cost drones simply couldn't break through the wall of American radar and discipline. Yet the cost of defense weighed heavy. Analysts inside the Pentagon watched ammunition counts fall faster than industrial lines could replenish them. The Houthis' strategy was simple: saturate and exhaust. For every American missile worth several $1 million, the enemy expended a drone that cost a few thousand. It was warfare measured in imbalance, and still the Navy held the line. As weeks turned into months, the Fifth Fleet transformed the region into a real-time laboratory for modern air defense. Data flowed constantly from ships, satellites, and patrol aircraft to the Maritime Operations Center in Bahrain, where watch officers stitched together a single tactical picture of an ocean the size of Europe. Electronic warfare teams aboard Laboon began cataloging every Houthi radar emission, building a database that allowed Aegis algorithms to pre-classify threats seconds faster than before. The difference between 8 seconds and 5 could mean survival. At sea, the logistical ballet never stopped. Fleet oilers and ammunition ships rendezvoused under blackout conditions to refuel and rearm the destroyers without ever entering port. Helicopters transferred pallets of SM-2 canisters like precision clockwork. Not a single mission aborted for lack of readiness. Below decks, engineers coaxed turbines that had run nearly non-stop for months, checking bearings by touch. Medics tended to sailors running on caffeine and adrenaline. The morale reports were brief, tired but steady. The largest engagement came without warning. On a January night, thick with humidity and static, the destroyer Mason picked up simultaneous launches from 4 separate coastal sectors. Within seconds, radar plots multiplied. Dozens of inbound drones, some skimming the waves, others descending from 20,000 feet in attack spirals. The command frequency was calm but clipped. Multiple groupings, confirmed hostile. Prioritize low-altitude tracks. The first volley of SM-6 interceptors streaked upward, their booster flames reflecting off the sea. At medium range, ESSM Block 2 missiles engaged the second wave. Above the chaos, a P-8A Poseidon aircraft relayed tracking data to every ship within 200 miles, fusing sensors into one unified kill chain. For 43 minutes, the Red Sea looked like a fireworks range. Tracer lines, intercept arcs, and white-hot explosions reflected in the swells. When the final radar return vanished, 18 drones and 4 cruise missiles had been destroyed. Not one ship took damage. That night became the benchmark for every air defense simulator that followed, a case study in what perfect coordination looks like when seconds decide survival. In early 2025, the attacks intensified. Intelligence intercepts confirmed Iranian advisors directing launch operations deep inside Yemen. On March 16th, after months of restraint, the United States authorized what official communiqué called sustained combat operations against Houthi forces. At 2200 hours Gulf time, destroyers Carney and Gravely launched Tomahawk land attack missiles toward identified radar sites near Al Hudaydah. The launches illuminated the decks with orange flame and thunder that rolled for miles. From the carrier USS Harry S. Truman, FA-18 Super Hornets lifted off to finish what the cruise missiles began. Airborne warning aircraft coordinated strikes across 20 targets, drone assembly buildings, missile storage bunkers, command nodes, and radar arrays. The precision was surgical. Satellite feeds later showed impact craters no wider than the doors they were aimed to destroy. Enemy retaliation came within hours. 10 one-way attack drones lifted off from western Yemen, homing in on the carrier group's position. The Truman's defense network went to automatic posture. Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles and Phalanx CIWS turrets forming an invisible shield over the task force. Every inbound was intercepted. Not one drone reached the carrier. For the first time in decades, American naval aviators and destroyer crews had fought a multi-domain campaign in real combat. Missiles, aircraft, surface ships, and cyber jamming all converging. Rear Admiral George Wyckoff, commanding 5th Fleet operations from Bahrain, logged the battle's outcome in a single line. All ships secure, all targets destroyed, no U.S. casualties. The numbers told their own story. Over 15 months, more than 380 engagements, over 220 interceptor missiles fired, 0 American ships hit. Behind those statistics stood the human element, hundreds of sailors who operated complex weapon systems with unshakable calm. On Carney, technicians worked 18-hour rotations to maintain radar calibration in desert heat. On Mason, ordnance crews reloaded VLS cells between engagements under floodlights that turned night into day. On Laboon, young radar operators learned to distinguish hostile echoes from civilian air traffic in mere seconds. Every action adhered to strict rules of engagement. Each interception was logged, reviewed, and confirmed by independent radar data. The Navy's performance was not luck. It was the result of decades of doctrine refined under pressure. As dawn rose over the Red Sea following the March strikes, satellite imagery showed plumes of smoke drifting inland from destroyed launch sites. Merchant convoys resumed transit under escort, their AIS signals blinking once again across commercial tracking systems. For a brief moment, calm returned to one of the world's most vital arteries. But in Washington and Norfolk, the operation prompted deeper reflection. The campaign had revealed both the strength and the strain of sustained high-tempo defense. Unrivaled effectiveness paired with consumption rates unseen since the Cold War. Logisticians began calculating replenishment cycles. Engineers discussed accelerating SM-6 and ESSM production. Strategists debated what the Red Sea had proven, that the future of naval warfare would hinge not only on technology, but on endurance. And within every wardroom, conversations turned to lessons learned. Some spoke of how radar clutter from commercial traffic forced real-time innovation in target discrimination. Others described the eerie silence that followed each intercept, the fraction of a second when the radar blip vanished and everyone realized the ship was still alive. At 7 a.m. the following morning, colors were raised on every ship of the task force. The stars and stripes caught the rising wind as engines idled to low RPM. No cheers, no ceremony, just quiet pride. Across 15 months of relentless pressure, American warships had protected global trade routes, carrying nearly 12% of the world's oil and commerce. They had absorbed every attack without loss, proven every weapon system under combat conditions, and reaffirmed the Navy's role as the shield of free navigation. From the bridge wings of Carney and Gravely, officers watched merchant vessels file north toward Suez. The sea looked calm again, but every sailor knew the calm had been earned, not granted. In the days that followed, debriefs filled the secure lines between Bahrain, Norfolk, and Washington. Every second of radar footage, every electronic signature, every intercept telemetry packet was archived and studied. Future captains would train on this data. Future ships would be built with these lessons in mind. When the official citation came down, it was understated, for exceptional performance under sustained combat conditions in defense of maritime freedom. The crews didn't need anything more. They had already written their chapter into naval history. The official communiques would later call it Operation Prosperity Guardian. Historians would call it the campaign that redefined modern naval warfare. But to those who stood the watch, it was something simpler, doing their job, protecting lives, deterring chaos, keeping the sea lanes open. When the Red Sea erupted, the U.S. Navy answered not with rhetoric, but with precision. 220 missiles, hundreds of intercepts, and thousands of decisions executed with calm hands and disciplined minds. And when the echoes faded, the ocean was quiet again, free, navigable, secure. Because somewhere out there, an American destroyer still keeps its radar turning, engines ready, and crew awake. The line holds. It always does. If you believe in the sailors who keep the world's sea lanes open, subscribe and share their story. Because the calm you see on the ocean is the sound of their vigilance.